because we need more people like you in the urban infrastructure of whatever's going on, and that's very, I'm very passionate about that.
Mm.
Because while people are in the whole urban dwellings and doing their jobs, and a lot of social workers, a lot of people that are in the field working, or artists that have a certain amount of resources that they get to work with. And sometimes, well, no, not sometimes, most of the time we're short for resources like this,
Yeah, absolutely.
because life becomes all about fulfilling agendas and making sure the job gets done.
Yeah.
So we really need people that are passionate about bringing a holistic sense of work and holistic sense to living life, so
Mm.
good on you. And that's huge for you. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and it is wonderful to see all of these different minds with all of this different knowledge to come together and create a whole picture, because
Yes.
we all go away and we specialize in something, which is really wonderful. But what does it contribute to at the end of the day? Because
Yes.
your wisdom is just so deep into a particular philosophy and teaching that some people would never have had the chance to tap into for whatever reason. And it's so wonderful to make like a sort of a free program where like practitioners are respected for their wisdom, and people can receive it for free, to know what it is, to kind of get like an accessibility to it.
Yes, thank you. Yes. I'm just really glad because one of my students actually asked me. We were just having a casual conversation about what are some of the ideas that I've had in the past, and one of my ideas were to actually establish an urban retreat center, so people don't have to eject themselves out of their own life to go out into the mountains, or get out of what they have to do to go and access some health and reset,
Mm-hmm.
because it's not part of the normal culture to respect our own body and respect our own mental health or emotional resilience, as you speak of. We don't really invest in that so commonly because it's something that we don't even pay attention to, really. So
Mm.
I think that's a really good movement that you've created, and it,
Mm.
it's something that we need to kind of, I think you and you starting it says a lot that we've moved forward already. So congrats. Yeah.
Well, the initial dream was, a couple of years ago there was a building on my street that was going to be demolished, and I was like, that could be a healing arts center.
Which one is it? The Willow house?
No, so it's on Onslow Street in
Okay.
Granville, and it used to be
Okay.
a community centre. So it was, I think, built for as a sports club,
Right.
soccer, and then it turned into a community centre. The Lebanese community used it a lot for their festivals and events and stuff.
Yeah.
And then it was abandoned for like 10 years. And I was like
Oh.
asking council, can we use that space? Because space is a huge thing now.
Yes.
Access to
Yes.
space is so hard to get.
Yes.
We're very fortunate with PARI to have a subsidy on our rent, to have access to the building that we do.
Mm.
Without that, there's no way, working in the arts, that we could afford a commercial space.
Yes.
But the council needs to realise that they've got to be able to support their communities with resilience to things like climate change. And part of that is addressing, mental health and well-being and our emotional resilience. So, Priya, if you want to start an urban wellness centre and I want to start a healing arts centre, I feel like there's a reason that we're connecting.
Yes.
And I feel like you need a really good team to start something like that.
Yeah. It's a big project.
Sorry?
It's a big project.
A big project, yeah.
Yes.
But, working at PARI, I've had a lot of kind of experience now in the last year and a half about different funding opportunities and, how to work alongside council and whatnot. So we could talk about that at a later date. Yeah, even if you wanted to get started with something small now, that could potentially grow. I mean, ask any questions you've got for us at PARI, because we do a lot of that. Yeah, figuring out how we can get funding and whatnot. So
wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's important because what we do is for community, really. Like, it's a very community focused place. So but yeah, I'm gonna start to ask you
Okay.
for you. And just, yeah, so this is for Cool River City. I'll just acknowledge that I'm talking to you from Darugland, of the Darug Nation. So where I'm speaking from is where the Burra people once lived, and just that this land was never ceded and was taken from them, and that each day that we do work on this land, we acknowledge that, and we hope to work towards a better future with a treaty, and and the First Nations people of this area respected. Something that we took away a lot from yesterday's workshop was just reconnecting with the land, and that was a First Nations led workshop by Wayapo, and it was really beautiful. So yeah, I think we really want to carry that energy throughout the whole Cool River City program and share it.
Yeah.
So welcome, Supriya from Seva Yoga. And I'll just acknowledge that you were my first yoga teacher for my first yoga teacher training. I did my 200-hour yoga teacher training with you, which was a foundation course. And I just have taken away so many pearls of wisdom for the rest of my life with that course. And I really want to continue to share yoga with people throughout my life. And yeah, you were my first mentor, I feel, in yoga practice. So I really wanted to invite you into this program, because I know a lot of people who are following this program really want to meet you and yeah, learn what you're teaching. So welcome.
Thank you, Hayley. You're such a darling. And of course, I believe in tribes. I believe in vibes. I believe that as we were speaking, you know, I think minds always find each other. So it's great. It's great that we've been able to be in each other's paths and cross paths and share what we both love and what we need in this time and place. Yes. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. I think I met you when I was like maybe 15 or 16. Like,
wow.
Yeah.
That's a long time, huh? You came in with your mum.
Yeah.
Yes.
And during your studio days in Harris Park.
Yes.
And I loved that studio as well.
Me too.
A great spot. So I guess we'll start with question 1. I'll try and keep on track.
Yes.
Just to give you an idea, the publication is quite a small handbook for this season. So you don't feel pressure to answer these questions too
much depth.
With too much depth. Like it's more of just an insight for people that haven't had the chance to really learn much about yoga.
Yes.
But also, if you do want to go on that tangent, go on that tangent. Feel the freedom. So as a yoga teacher, what are your main takeaways from studying the deeper history and philosophy of yoga?
Yeah, so I actually made some notes on this because there's so many, you might guess, but my top 3, and I might share a 4th if we get the time, but number 1 is, you know, it's a tool to expand the mind. You know, we talk about flexibility. Yoga's core giveaway is that the flexibility starts in the mind. So, you know, what it's really given me the chance to explore is, you know, whatever makes me feel separate to what is, I have a way to find unity with that, you know. So say for example, our spiritual life and our physical life, you know, we sometimes feel separated from it, and yoga's principles and teachings really help you find the unity consciousness between the two, you know, that not one is not superior than the other. So we tend to think that the physical life is inferior to the spiritual life, which is higher or superior, but you know, in the end it's all part of the one. And yeah, so that's one of my biggest takeaways, and it's really helped me uh, embrace this physical life a lot, with a lot more love and respect. Yeah. Yeah.
Beautiful. And
so there's a couple more, and number two is that it is a lifestyle tool, and a lot of people ask me that is it a religion? Actually, yoga has no dogma, you know, so it doesn't believe in an authority or authoritarian voice or this is the way it should be, etc., etc. So it really, going with that, which is, you know, expanding the mind and the consciousness, it really helps you look at things as in there is more than one point of view, you know, to everything. So that's a really beautiful takeaway for me as well, having grown up in a multi-faith kind of a family. It's really helped me bring the peace, you know, in my own mind, to be able to respect where people are at, as well as just feeling grounded in myself, in the way I look at things. So it's very non-dogmatic, and that's one of the maybe misunderstandings in the world about yoga, which is it Hinduism or is it a religious thing? No, actually it's not. It's very neutral. It actually probably helps you get closer to what you believe God to be, etc. You know. And the third main one is that the philosophy actually helps you lead an ethical and organic life, you know, which is to unite with or get in sync with nature itself. So it's organic, being that, you know, whatever stands in your way in feeling at peace, well, you get a chance to shed that, you know, you get a chance to melt that, dissolve that, and really become a lot more organic in your way of being. So I guess, you know, the urban life, modern life, or say even growing up, you know, from being a child to adult to senior, whatever your life course teaches you, everything comes at a cost of conditioning. So the conditioning of our experiences can take a toll on the way we end up behaving or reacting, etc. So it's a great tool for, you know, deconditioning, unlearning, and becoming more organic and natural, you know, rather than conditioned and rigid. So yeah, those are the three main takeaways for me.
they are that it's so beautiful. But like for me, it's like I know how much deeper that goes.
Yes.
But to get it in these three succinct, you know, simple answers is also really helpful as well, because it's like a refresher for me. I'm like, yeah, like everything that I learned with you just really falls into these three categories. And it's just so powerful how it does help with those things, especially feeling more in sync with nature.
Yes.
Yeah, because it just opens you up. And so I guess I would also like to ask you what lineage of yoga you teach and why.
Yeah, so my journey of yoga, formal yoga training, started in a very classical yoga school called Sri Krishnamacharya Yoga Mandiram, which is based in Chennai, India. And Sri Krishnamacharya is like the master who kind of taught all the masters that are out there now. And his focus was always combining Ayurveda with Hatha Yoga. And he follows strictly Hatha Yoga, I guess, the system, right? But Patanjali's Yoga Sutras is the main text. That's the system we follow, which talks about the 8 limbs of yoga, which is developed to cultivate a meditative mind. So that's exactly kind of the flavor of the teachings that I impart to my students. But I also have learned from other masters who have specialized also in the tantric philosophy, and my background in Ayurveda. So Hatha Yoga is a system I teach, but I have adapted it to in consideration to all that I have learned along my last 14 years. And I've created my own system under the same category of practices, which is more accessible to someone that's just starting, to someone that's developing from that point, and then someone that wants to advance themselves from that other next point, so it's a lineage that keeps giving, to the Krishnamacharya lineage, because it is breath-based, which is focusing on meditative mind. So the philosophy is very accessible by everyone, as you would know, because it's very simple, which is, teaches what is right for the person in front of you, instead of teaching by the book, as in, this is what it is, this is what you must learn and do, where it teaches us how to present it to the individual for where they're at, rather than imposing the tradition, so to speak. Yeah. And you still learn the tradition, and the beauty and the essence of the tradition is that, hey, look at yourself just for where you are. So that's the lineage. Yeah.
Yeah, and I imagine being able to adapt the lineage to a Western sort of society for beginners as well.
Yes.
Because it's a lot to get your head around if you really, but that's why you don't start off with the deeper text. You start off with a more simple class, right? To just introduce you to opening up your body.
Yes, exactly. I mean, when it comes down to it, everyone's got their own process, but one of the things that yoga has also taught me is that yoga is synonymous with life, so along your journey, when you start actually studying it for deeper reasons, for the deeper questions, you'll find that the answers have always been with you. It's just that you're now focusing on harnessing them, that you were always on the right path. You just needed to know that you are on the right path.
Yeah, it's that shift in focus.
Yes.
Yeah, and I've had a few of those experiences so far. And
yeah.
It's just how you just keep going.
Yes. It's the other distractions that get in the way, that tell you, no. And then that's the conditioning, we have to decondition.
Yeah, the unlearning.
Yeah, the unlearning, exactly. So, yeah. So
yeah.
I guess to answer the question was, what lineage of yoga I teach. I follow the Krishnamacharya yoga lineage, the essence of it, and I do share with my students what his teachings are, but then the methodology is my own, because his methodology is his schools, which is classical yoga, which is practiced in a very therapeutic sense. But when you're teaching it for students that are learning to teach yoga, the first stage is to actually develop the student's own practice, and then from there, going into advancing them to become more focused on how to be delivering that information. That takes time. And that takes a lot more self-exploration. So yeah.
I can even tell by reflecting on your classes how you have adapted certain things.
Yes.
Like even the way you do the start of a class and the sort of chest openers you do and the spinal twisting to prepare yourself for the deeper asanas that you go into.
Yes.
I mean, yeah, they are
good.
Yeah, I mean, you know exactly what you're helping your students with in terms of their relationship to their bodies. So yeah, I think for people who haven't started yoga, I think there's always, and in kind of looking for your teachers anywhere, there's always this question of like, what should I look for in a teacher? Because you don't know sort of the direction you want to be taken in necessarily. So I thought I would ask you what you would look for in a yoga teacher if you were looking right now.
Yeah, so I actually didn't understand what that question meant. Did you want to know what I would look for in a teacher to practice with for myself, or to hire a teacher to teach for me?
Oh no, just I think if you
To learn from?
I think because you are a yoga teacher and you know how the diversity in which yoga people teach.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, from your wisdom or your standpoint, what you would be looking for in a yoga teacher to teach you. Like, what are the few things you know you would want from a yoga teacher?
Sure. Look, firstly, I would always know that, the focus of the teachings must be focusing on the breath. The focus on the breath, if it's missing, then, we are, again, not working closely with our own prana, which is the life force. And that's one of the biggest needs for humans, which is to slow our breathing down. This is the biggest medicine for you of yoga. So breathing is a focus. It should be a focus in their class. And second thing is physical alignment, which is knowing your asanas well enough to instruct the asanas alignment, positioning of the bones and the bones to get the best range of motion out of someone's body is crucial to developing strength and movability, of the body. So mobility. So those are the two things I would look at. Because I've taught a diverse group of people, like certain people can't speak English. The English is not their first language. And or some people's background don't allow them to or not allow them to, or maybe not did not educate them to do public speaking or be more extroverted, or this is all secondary to the job of being a yoga teacher. The two most things is that your time with another individual or a group as a teacher is all about delivering yoga for what it is, and then everything else comes secondary. So talk about personality of the teacher. It shouldn't matter really, because if you are able to instruct safely with the correct knowledge, then that's all that matters, And how to assess that is basically, once you've taken the class, you should feel at peace and at ease, you're not walking away feeling stressed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that'll be really helpful for a lot of people out there.
Yeah.
Because yoga is a very saturated industry now.
Yes.
And I think a lot of people are after an authentic experience.
Yeah.
Perhaps. And I think it takes the pressure off when you know kind of what you're looking for, or what the best takeaways from yoga can be.
Yes.
And the next question is a simple one. Who can practice yoga?
Everyone. Yoga was developed. Look, again, coming back to the lineage of Krishnamacharya, in the traditional sense, there's a specific yoga for different age groups. So we shouldn't forget that, So we should not generalize yoga. And I'm using the word should is because that's what yoga is like. It's very universal, but then it's not one size fits all.
Yeah.
So yoga, what we know it as is probably movements and breathing. Now breathing is becoming a lot more well known in the marketplace, but yoga as a practice, like the actual discipline of yoga, is adaptable and needs to be taught appropriate to the age group of person. Mm-hmm. So something for my mother would not be the right thing for me, because my body needs different yoga postures, mm-hmm. movement, breathing, activity of the mind, very different. So that's really important to know.
Because I think the dominant representation of yoga you see is for the young sort of working professional, who is quite fit and they're kind of at the peak of their career and go-getters, but that representation of yoga really doesn't invite everyone in. Mm-hmm. So I think it's always really important to remember yoga is for everyone, and that there are so many other accessibility points in yoga.
Yes, simply put, there's different intensities of yoga classes, and it is an adaptable thing, so everyone can practice it, even a child, but the child is not going to do what the adult is doing in the class.
And even when throughout a working week, if I've been really physical during that week, doing a lot of physical chores, sometimes the yoga that I needs to adapt to that physical exertion that week. So I'll go into something that's a little bit more restorative than really, hot yang sort of thing. But that's getting more into it, as yoga can be adapted to your energy levels as well as your age groups. So
that is exactly what I would say. Someone that's becoming an advanced practitioner, being able to tune into what you need instead of what you think you need, it's not an exercise, it's an actual tool.
And I noticed that shift in myself when I was doing the same yoga over and over throughout uni, which was the very muscular yang style. I didn't understand that I could adapt it until now, and I'm so thankful to be able to do that for myself. It becomes a very powerful lifestyle tool. So for a beginner, what is the best way to start practicing yoga?
Well, again, I would ask what's their age group, because like we know yoga is accessible in the marketplace, because you see it at the gyms, you see it at schools. Now schools are giving yoga lessons too, some schools. And so I think, anywhere where they are doing age particular yoga is the best place to start. Find a class that would cater to you for where you're at in your age group. That's what I would say. Because if you go to a general class, that's what I did as an adult. I mean, I was probably 23 when I've tried my first yoga lesson here in Australia. And I went to Fitness First for it. And I was very put off by it, because I was not finding any connection with the teacher, and everyone was way advanced than me in movements, and I didn't find any connection there, to it. So that would have deterred me, I think, if I didn't feel a calling to it later on, So I don't think I wouldn't tell someone to go and find any class and join any class. I would say, look at what schools are offering it for a particular age groups or catering to your needs, like a specific class
Mhm.
to start with.
Yeah. Yeah, because there is your personal safety in moving your body, and your limits.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's important to take that time to kind of look at what's being offered and know what's meeting you where
Yes.
you feel comfortable in entering a, a new yoga practice.
Yes.
Can I ask, with that Fitness First class, was there any did they talk about any of the philosophy or spirituality?
No, I can't remember that. But all I remember, my only memory of this class was we went into boat pose, which I could hardly get into, and then they opened the legs up, and I was falling back. I kept falling back, but there was a lady, probably like much older than me, and a bit overweight. She could do it.
Yeah.
And I was getting frustrated. I mean, 23, I was a very, competitive kind of a person at that age.
Mhm.
And I thought, oh, what's going on? How come I can't do it? I thought it was all about strength or flexibility, and I just couldn't get it. But
Yeah.
the teacher, because there were so many people in the room too, and the teacher didn't give me any attention either to just kind of go, okay, this person's falling over, let me help her, or tell her what to do. So maybe it was a missing instructions or whatever that was, but I just sensed that, well, this can't be, this is not my thing because it's not doable.
Mm.
That's how I felt. No, there wasn't any philosophy. There was probably not enough instructions there either. So, but I don't want to give Fitness First a bad rap because,
Yeah.
I've heard that there are, I've heard pretty good things about certain classes as well. So, I'm just saying my experience back then was that.
But you can understand with a gym, their focus being very physical, right?
Yes.
In the gym sort of industry, it is a very physical.
Yes.
mentality.
Yes, the preconceived notion is that you're there for the body first,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And also, you from my teaching experience, what I have heard is that when you're teaching at a gym, you're not really expecting regular students. That it's an in and out kind of a group, right? So maybe the relationship is not, or building a relationship with your student is not primary focus for the teacher.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think a privately owned yoga studio or a yoga teacher that teaches private groups is probably a good place to start for that reason too, because you'll get that level of attention. Yeah.
Maybe a bit more of a holistic introduction.
Yes, and they'll give you the attention, and it'll be a different setup completely than the gym, because the gym environment is a bit different. Yeah.
Question 6. Can yoga be adapted to suit different needs?
Yes, absolutely. So, we look at physical ailments. So any respiratory issues, then you can look at physical functional issues, um, you name it, they can be addressed through yoga. And just looking at those aspects can change so many things about an individual. So when you talk about even chronic ailments, chronic problems, yeah, all of that comes under the respiratory or a physical issue. So because it's such a holistic program, yoga is such a holistic practice, a holistic being that it gets you to breathe properly for the human body. And the human body has unique needs. And once the unique needs are met, the physical body is just loving it, that whole attention and the change in its behavior. So all these kinds of changes start to happen. So a lot of things can be addressed through yoga.
Yeah, it's so wonderful to see, especially for rehabilitation and whatnot. I've definitely met a lot of people along the way that have said, oh, yoga just really helped me through this incredibly challenging time where my body was, you know, not working in some way, and they just had to focus on that rehabilitation through movement and breathing practice.
Yes.
And yoga was their choice, their style choice for that. Yeah, it's just wonderful the way it can be adapted to suit different times of your life. And then question 7, this is one of my favorite things about what you do with your classes. But you adapt a lot of your yoga sequences to the seasons.
Yeah.
Why is this?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, one of my takeaways of yoga is the leading an ethical life and leading an organic way of life. So your yoga practice shouldn't be separate from that. So what you are investing your time into when you're practicing, say, a posture practice, I think that's what you're referring to. So the posture practice, that time that you're investing in your day for your posture practice, if it's aligned to what's happening in nature, it's definitely going to raise your awareness of what's happening in nature or outside of you. And so you will become more adaptable and in more harmony with it than be feeling resistant to it. So that's one of the reasons. And because yoga and Ayurveda work hand in hand, this is where I've gone deeper into it and really looked at how to teach a sequence that's aligned to the season, to have more potency to the practices we do on the mat and even around the day, that will pretty much keep us in harmony with the natural changes that are happening with us.
Because the recent rain, I noticed myself and a lot of people around me feeling quite down.
Yeah.
Mentally, just there was this sort of, I guess when you take away that sun for an extended period of time, actually, like scientifically, we're not getting that vitamin D, we're not soaking that up, and that's helping our serotonin levels. So we're kind of, we have a lull in serotonin, but then there are movement practices or foods that we can eat that bring serotonin back up. So when you think about it in that way, it can be really helpful for those weather extremes.
Yes, and there are meditations you can do. You can do even just smiling releases serotonin.
Yeah, no.
I know it's unnatural when you're conditioned to not smile when there's a gray day. Our automatic response is, oh, look at the day, it's so cloudy, and once again it's raining. Well, we in Ayurveda, that's just called a kapha day, which is the earth element, and the water element is more today. And we shift the focus from just that, which is what we're conditioned to look at because our eyes are so actively feeding us all this information. We take the focus elsewhere, like we say, well, isn't the day so grounding? Isn't it helping me feel a lot more settled today? Instead of looking at it as boring or sluggish. Yeah.
Today was, I mean, the last 3 days have been so beautiful, the sun. And this morning was just a morning in my garden, just getting like all autumn.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, it was such a recharge. And I guess because I know we've only got really 15 minutes, I only wanted to use up an hour of your time with this. So, but yeah, since the 2020 bushfires and the floods of this year, people have been experiencing a lot more climate anxiety. Can yoga help something like climate anxiety?
Yes, in short, of course, yes. But I want to just give some perspective to that. When we're looking at change in climate, and when we're looking at, even a season like this where it's raining for 5 days and sunny for a few days, and So, I mean, climate change is a global matter, you know, and a community matter, and you know, everything is going to keep happening, and change is, we know, it's a constant. You know, change is the only consistent thing in our life, but we seem to fear it as well. We seem to be so resistant to this change. So why does anxiety happen? You know, we have to first ask ourselves that, you know, what is making us anxious, you know, and also look at what are the contributors to anxiety that we feel on a personal level. And first, once we acknowledge that, then we can see that, you know, well, is climate change one of them as well? Yes, okay. So firstly, doing that piece of the work will give you an idea about how much is within your control and how much is not. So yes, we are all trying to better the global or I guess we are trying to live an eco-friendly life as much as possible for where we are all based, you know. I mean, I have to say, even if I tried, much of my eco-friendliness goes out the window because I live in a modern building, you know, because garbage is not something that I get to actually dispose of the way I would like to. So just give you an example, but I can't take stress about that. You know why? Because, you know, then that actually wreaks havoc on my ecosystem within me. You know, the eco-friendliness goes from within me. So I think, like, when you when you have a question like, you know, personal anxiety from the climate change and the ecosystem being in a flux, we really have to separate the two, and we also have to stay healthy personally to be able to observe these changes and take as much accountability as possible, and also remain healthy through this change, because otherwise we can't make those productive changes for the future, you know. Yeah. So really keeping in touch with, okay, this is a problem, yes, and there are many problems that contribute to my anxiety, but let me start with actually addressing the anxiety first. You know, let me see, this is in my hands, right? I need to observe things in the right light. Yeah, so
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I think yoga really helps you to become aware of what is within your control and what you can meet and what is outside of your control.
Yes.
And, you know, when there are things that are outside of our control that regarding climate change, it doesn't help us to get really anxious about those things.
Yeah.
But doing the small things that are like within your control,
yes,
that, you know, you can meet just on a simple day-to-day level, those things are really helpful. And yeah, yoga really helps you tune in to that sort of responding, not reacting, right?
Exactly. Having the choice to do that, actually, you know, so much of our behavior is reactive because we don't believe we have the choice.
Yeah.
At that moment, you know. So and then if you don't have a space, or if you're not a part of a space or an environment which promotes that sort of a practice, then you are accumulating that stress throughout your day, and then you're taking that home. And so part of your own inner ecosystem needs to be taken care of, which is within your control. And then coming to the collective ecosystem, which is creating the climate change, you know, that step can be addressed very differently. So anxiety can be separated on a personal level to the global anxiety, you know, because if we remain reactive to it, we are going to keep perpetuating this anxiety that's going to keep creating more problems in the ecosystem. Why? Because we're not taking proactive steps. We're not being proactive for ourselves. As a result, or all our actions or steps are also being very reactive to the environment.
And that is that emotional resilience, isn't it?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
This is exactly the message.
Responsibility almost.
Yes, this is exactly the message of seva.
Mm.
Seva, the word seva is selfless action, right? Or selfless service. But service, to be of service, you need to be of service to yourself first, right? The self-care has to be there first
Yeah.
for you to be of service. If you don't have that energy, you cannot be used.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's yeah, just so well put.
Yeah, and you know, and the tagline "compassionate action" is just that. You know, I tell my students this all the time because that's something that I learned quite late in life, where we look at compassion as feeling pity. You know, maybe, you know, unconsciously we might think of it as, oh, poor thing. Then that's my practice of compassion. Actually, compassion is having bandwidth to feel your own pain, and you feel your own sorrows, feel your own body, feel your own anxieties, and then only can you actually empathize and know what the other person is going through, right? Or what Mother Earth is going through.
That's exactly how I was thinking when I was thinking of developing a public program for the community about climate resilience. I just, you know, I was down, you know, in the bushfires. I experienced that like firsthand, being evacuated, and then returning to Sydney and feeling the anxiety of all the Sydney-siders as well. And feeling like if we're really going to develop a climate resilience toolkit with this grant at PARI, we need to start with ourselves.
Yes.
What is the personal actions? Because we can't just race around being anxious. Nothing happens when we're in that kind of level of emotion.
Correct.
So yeah.
And you will find that the same framework that you apply to yourself can be applied to the community, can be applied to the global community. Yes.
Yeah, it's the
Same
micro and the
framework.
macro.
Yes, the micro to the macro. Yes.
It's always, yeah. And you know, there are a lot of overlaps between interviewing you today and doing the Waiapa workshop yesterday.
Wow.
So many overlaps, and because it is about that personal practice and honoring that connection with yourself and the outside world. You know?
Then Mother Earth, yes, because yoga comes from the ancient texts of Vedas, right? Vedas were written by superconscious minds, not just a conscious brain mind, right? It's not just written down rules and methods. And what it tapped into is the universal knowledge or wisdom, universal wisdom. So really, yoga means union. Yoga means union, means that we are part of this planet. You know, we are part of this planet. This body is a part of this planet. So whatever Mother Earth is feeling, we are also feeling. So we're not separate from that. So I wouldn't say this anxiety is a false thing. No. But how can we address something that's happening on a planet level if we cannot face what's happening on this microplanet level, you know? Yeah.
Absolutely. And yeah, and it's just so wonderful to bring, people like you and, you know, organizations like Waiapa in to start this process.
Yes.
And I guess more directively, I know there are postures that do help with depression and anxiety.
Yes.
And I guess if as an immediate go-to, what kind of asana posture would you recommend someone try if they were experiencing a lot of anxiety in one given moment?
Yes. Okay. So again, if the person is, I would definitely go into some light stretching, okay, because that will open up the airways.
Mhm.
So a couple of side bends. So raise the arm over the head, raise the arm over the head to the side to open up the intercostals and the extracostal muscles of your ribs.
Mhm.
And then some stretching of the chest. So interlock the fingers and chest opener, just opening up the chest. If this is not the range of motion, then just spread your arms out and look up.
Yeah.
And then do some neck circles. So immediately what you will do is you'll release all the tensions from the muscles that are used to breathe slowly or deeply, right? Deep breaths or slow breaths are not the same for everyone. So it varies from person to person. So our breath rate is different. So
Mhm.
that's what I'm trying to say. So first point I would say is a couple of side bends, a few cat cows if seated or seated. Yep, seated cat cows. And then you could do a child's pose.
Mm.
But child's pose can also trigger anxiety for some because it actually inhibits breathing. So child's pose with the head going below the heart and head being in that position, it can actually induce someone to breathe a little bit funnily. Yeah, and so if that's not suitable, then just lay down on a bolster with the bolster on your spine and the back of your head, and just a nice reclining reclining fish pose, modified fish pose it's called. Yeah, so you just put a nice big bolster or some good pillows down your back
Mhm.
and lay on it, so your spine, the whole spine and the head gets nice support, and you get to lay down a little bit elevated. So all these muscles that we were talking about, they open up and you're no longer standing. So you're in a position to breathe freely instead of, tightly.
Mhm.
So I
Yeah.
guess the way I work with my clients or students is just to really look at the physical position you've been in and just to reverse that straight away. So yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I completely understand that. And yeah, I think so with the child's pose,
Yes.
you would say come to that once you've maybe the breathing's calmed down a bit more, because
Yeah,
then
sure.
child's pose is very relaxing.
It is.
Yeah.
Yes. For you and me, it is. But then most people wouldn't like it on their hips or their shoulders
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
they don't do yoga postures regularly.
It's
Yeah.
funny, now I'm asking you this question, I'm realizing that's a really difficult one to answer because again, it can be modified, or it has to be modified to suit the person.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Yes. This is something you learn when you start practicing yoga. Practicing from a book or YouTube is very different to actually working with people. So, yes, there are good postures for different things, different seasons, bodies, conditions, but then I think it would always depend on the person. And I only speak like this because of what I know and what I do. So
Absolutely.
yeah, and it's not a one size fits all thing. But on a general level, this is not going to cause any harm. It's only going to enhance the experience of being in the body, which is side bends are a must for all bodies because there's hardly ever that we lift our arms. There's hardly ever. So these arms just being down by the side
Yeah.
are inhibiting our breaths, right? So all our activities are like this. Our arms are down here. Yeah. Raising the arms is a great thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember yesterday, I distinctly remember yesterday, the way people looked, their faces after the Wayapa workshop, or especially during the ones where, you'd be reaching back and opening this,
Yes.
like people, like this sort of, I know people's faces started to relax as well.
There you go. Yes. Change the posture.
Mm-hmm. And how do you see yoga helping people in the future?
It's a tool for expansion. So, evolution. Basically, it's a transformation tool. It's got no dogma. So more and more people are expanding their awareness now. More and more people are subscribing to personal development or of all sorts. So this yoga is just gonna keep going, for that reason. It's a great companion.
Yeah. And what do you hope to see for the evolution of the yoga industry?
Yeah, this one I was thinking about it. I just hope that I was actually having a chat with a friend of mine who's thinking of starting to write a teacher training. And he wanted to know my journey and what I thought and all that. So I just think that the reason why the marketplace is saturated with yoga instructors, and I call them instructors versus teachers, is because there are a lot of schools that teach teacher training programs. It's a business decision. So the maybe the content isn't being taught very authentically, or maybe the content is very stock standard. So the wisdom needs to be there in a training. So I think what I'd like to see in the industry is that the wisdom does not get changed just to suit someone's business and viability, and that it is shared as it is and not changed to, again, appease the marketplace, because yoga is not something that, again, it's not to be adapted. It is exactly right as it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
How was that? That's all the questions.
Woohoo! I hope. How was that for you? I hope I didn't go off on tangents.
Oh, I love a little tangent anyway, because you just get a few more snippets of information, seeds of wisdom. Yeah, it was wonderful, Supriya.
It was great catching up with you, Hayley.
Yeah.
I definitely will invite you on to something that when I start my podcasts, I will invite you on.
Oh, that'd be great.
To share your mission and everything like that.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah. No, amazing. And I am going to include a few postures next to your interview in the River City publication.
Yes.
So if you wanted to make any suggestions, kind of centering around this sort of anxiety and like helping breathing and the parasympathetic nervous system. So it doesn't have to be one of your like IP Seva yoga. We don't want to like take your intellectual property. It's just more of a visual introduction to some postures that can help with things like anxiety and whatnot.
Yep, I can probably, let me see if I have pictures of me doing those poses that I mentioned, like a seated side bend and child's pose and chest opener or cat cow. Yeah, cat cow, side bend, and reclining shavasana with the bolster on the back.
Yeah, okay. And because these will be drawings.
Oh, right. Okay, then
you can use your photos, but yeah, they'll be just because the print of this publication is in monochromatic.
Yes.
So it'll be easier as drawn diagrams to.
Yes, sure. If you want to send them through to me just to look through, I'm happy to do that for you. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah. When are you looking at publishing it?
The end of the season.
Okay.
So we've got a few months.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. It's gonna be good.
Right. Awesome. I'm so glad you reached out to me. I'm grateful that this initiative is taking place in this community.
Yeah.
And I've always sensed a lot more heart in whatever comes from the West. So I feel like So I feel really, really proud of you for doing what you're doing.
And I'm so happy, like I'm so happy we got to include you, and that more people will get to know you from this.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I look forward to everyone being able to listen to you. And so yeah, and April 11, just the live class.
Yes, absolutely. We'll be there with bells on. And would you mind sending me this recording?
Yeah,
I will put it on my YouTube if
Yeah.
that's okay. Yeah.
for sure.
Thanks, Haley.
Okay, bye.
Bye. Take care.
Okay.